So Trump knows who his VP is going to be. So Trump's choice for VP, he says this, quote, "I know who it's going to be." Let's take a listen. And this is just reason number 100 billion why I love Donald Trump. Here we go.
Who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started like Christie better.
Christie for vice president?
I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce.
Who would be in the running for vice
Yes, as we all know, Chris Christie, he dropped out, I believe, earlier that day. And then Trump goes on Fox News that night and says, yeah, I'm already starting to like Chris Christie better. I love it. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. One more thing that I wanted to play from that interview Trump did on Fox News. It was the Iowa town hall. Trump, he just goes in on the abortion issue and he doesn't shy away from it. Now, I do think that Donald Trump has been kind of weak on the abortion issue. And I tell Republicans all of the time, don't be weak on the abortion issue. Scott Preston, he was running against Sharon Chung, and really what he could have done better was talking about how, hey, you're a radical. Do you believe in abortions at 9 months? And get Sharon to answer that question. You need to get the Democrats to answer that question, hold their feet to the fire, and really try to understand how far along is too far. Like, how far along are they okay with clubbing the baby in the head? I mean, is it post-birth? Is it pre-birth, 8 months? What is it? And Donald Trump, he hasn't been really strong on this issue because Donald Trump is by no means like a uber conservative. Okay, he's not like this traditionalist I am, and he's a populist. And Donald Trump, he doesn't shy away from it here, and he handles this like every Republican should. If you're running for a state office, if you're running for Congress, this is how you should handle the abortion question. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Tearing our country apart for 50 years. Nobody's been able to do anything. And again, you can only ask that question, and you ask it brilliantly. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. I love where you're coming from. But we still have to win elections. And they've used this. We have some great Republicans, and they're great on the issue. And you would love them on the issue. And a lot of them have just been decimated in the election. Decimated. I mean, absolutely. So we're going to come up with something that people want and people like. I would love you to, first of all, you have to go with your heart. Okay, you have to go with your heart first. Go with your heart, your mind, go with it. But you do also have to put in there a little bit. You have to win elections. But if it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this up. You wouldn't be asking that question because we're right back. I remember this. They're the radicals. We're not the radicals because they'll kill a baby. Remember, I had the debate with crooked Hillary Clinton, which I don't call her crooked anymore. I use it now for Joe Biden, as you know. I call her beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But in the debate with Hillary Clinton, I said, she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And, I never heard this. It happened to me. It just came to me during that debate. I didn't go up there thinking I was going to say that. And she even winced. Nobody wants to see that happening after a certain period of time. Nobody. Mm-hmm. They're the radicals because they're willing to kill the baby in 8 months, 9 months, or even after birth. If you remember the former governor of Virginia, where he said, you kill the baby after the 9th month, or even afterwards, you set the baby aside and you have a conversation with the mother. And if the conversation, can you imagine? But these are the radicals. We're not the radicals. We are not the radicals. But we're living in a time when there has to be a little bit of a concession one way or the other. And I think, I want to get it right. I have to get it right. But without what I did, you would never even be asking that question because there was no chance that was going to happen. For 54 years they campaigned on that issue and nobody pulled it off but me.
Yeah. Like I said, they're the radicals, and you have to hold their feet to the fire, see where they stand on the issue, because as soon as you get them to talk about the issue and where they stand, I guarantee you most Democrats, probably about 92%, will tell you that they are for abortions up until birth, so 9 months, and probably even some of them, majority of Democrats are for abortion even after the birth of the baby. So Donald Trump handled that beautifully. We've got so much to talk about. I do want to get to Hunter Biden because there was this journalist who asked, what kind of crack do you prefer, Hunter? So I want to get to that clip because I thought it was hilarious. I sent it to everybody I knew. So I'll get to that. Plus, I do want to get to this Illinois state lawmaker. He went down to the southern border, and he actually went to El Paso, Texas. This is Brad Holbrook, and he sat down with the Center Square, had an interview about what he saw at the border. And I think every policymaker, no matter if you are a state representative, a congressman, you should go down and see what this looks like firsthand. It really puts things into perspective. So I'm excited to talk about that. Plus, Walmart Becky. She is the latest Gen Z worker to whine on TikTok about how she can't afford to live. And I'm in the Gen Z camp, and I've never blamed Gen Xers. There's a reason why I don't blame Gen Xers. So we're going to talk about Walmart Becky here coming up in just a little bit. But first, Hunter Biden. And what kind of crack does he prefer to smoke? A reporter asked Hunter Biden what kind of crack he prefers. And today I learned there are different types of crack. I did not know that there were different types of crack, but apparently there are. And I absolutely love this clip. I'm hoping that this will load. But this is because I've had a hard time playing this clip this morning. I don't know if they're trying to censor this or what. But yeah, I'm not gonna be able to play this. Yeah, for some odd reason, this clip out of all of the clips won't load. But reporter asked Hunter Biden, "Hey, what kind of crack do you prefer?" So according to the Daily Mail, Hunter skirted around a flurry of questions by reporters who swarmed him in a hallway after he left the hearing, including allegations that he put his then VP father, Joe Biden, on the phone with his foreign business clients on at least 20 different occasions. Okay, so we've got the evidence here. We know that he was on the phone with his father during these business calls. Now, there was one reporter who said this: "Why did you put your dad on speakerphone if he had nothing to do with your business? You put him on speaker multiple times to talk to your business partners. Why did you do that?" That was one reporter. And then Hunter shoots back at the reporter and says, "Hey, do you have a dad? Does he call you? Do you answer the phone?" And then the reporter says, "Well, yeah, but why did you need to talk to him during business meetings if he had nothing to do with your business?" So she pressed one more time. And then Hunter breaks down. He responds, "You're dangerous. You're very dangerous." And then he walks away. And then you hear this reporter, you can't see the reporter, in the background. And you say, "What kind of," the reporter says, "What kind of crack do you normally smoke, Mr. Biden?" And you can see the president's son headed towards the door of the House office building. I mean, this is amazing. Hunter walked into the Oversight Committee hearing room earlier on Wednesday with his attorneys and sat down in the first row, taking in the chaos, and then unfolded in front of the chaos that was unfolding in front of him as lawmakers grappled with the remarkable turn of events. Okay, so come on, man, this is the easiest question for Hunter to answer. Really, what kind of crack do you smoke, Mr. Biden? We all know that Hunter is the smartest man Joe knows. So why couldn't he answer the question, what kind of crack do you smoke? Although I can't agree with the statement that Hunter Biden is the smartest man that Joe knows. He comes off very, very arrogant. Hunter Biden does. I just explained the exchange he had with this reporter There was all kinds of chaos in the oversight committee room, hearing room. His lawyers were there. He was forced to grapple with the evidence that was presented before him. And Hunter, he's arrogant, and he's been on some sort of media tour to try to make it seem like he's the victim here. He's gone as far as to claim that Republicans are trying to kill him. Yes, don't believe me? Here's the quote. They're trying to destroy a presidency, and so it's not about me. What they're trying to do is they're trying to kill me, knowing that it will be a pain greater to my father, my father could be able to handle. Okay, Hunter, I don't think that your dad respects you that much, much, but you can see what he's doing here. He's trying to make himself into some sort of victim. And then he's quoted again, and so therefore destroying a presidency in that way. So they're trying. He went as far as to say that Republicans are trying to kill him, which is just absurd. He goes, "quote These are very just sad, very very sick people. They have most likely just faced traumas in their lives that they have decided they're going to turn into an evil, and they decided they're going to inflict that evil on the rest of the world." That's what Hunter Biden told Fox News, or said, according to the outlet. Hunter wants us all to believe that he's some sort of victim, and it's all because his daddy is president. That's why he's going through this. That's not true. The ironic thing is he's not a victim because he's got the last name Biden. Okay, he's not a victim. But if it were not for his family and his name, his last name, he would be living in a tent, smoking crack in California. If it weren't for him being a Biden, he wouldn't have his mansion in Malibu. He would be smoking crack in a tent in California. That's the type of guy Hunter is. He's only able to not be a victim because he's got that last name. What job has Hunter ever had that was not because of his daddy's connections? Okay. What job has he ever had? Look, I don't know what kind of crack Hunter does or does not smoke, but I can assure you, if he does smoke crack, it's probably the good stuff. Because, or as Trump would say, the best stuff, the best. Uh, because he's got daddy's connections, okay? And he's a Biden, so he gets the best of everything. All right, I do have to take a break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning. Hey, smash that like button. We're back in just a little bit. We're going to be chatting about an Illinois state lawmaker. He's calling on the Biden administration to close the U.S. southern border after his trip to El Paso, Texas. Illinois, we've seen about 30,000 migrants arrive since August of 2022. And this has left a lot of communities, including our own little McLean County, in need of help. Okay. There are going to be several communities, as you heard in the news at the top of the hour. Uh, there's a lot of communities, counties, towns, municipalities that are not putting up with this. They're refusing to take any part in sheltering these migrants, these illegal immigrants. And McLean County has just added to that list because they've got a resolution out there that says, hey, we're not going to be using taxpayer funded services to address the housing of these migrants. We're not going to be doing it. And Chuck Erickson, he was the one who proposed that. They're supposed to be voting on it tonight. So that's Thursday night. They're supposed to be voting on it. And you guys should have signed up for public comment yesterday. If you didn't, you still might be able to get in. I doubt it. But yeah, hopefully it's a great meeting today. And the resolution passes. I'm sure Corey Byrne and Crystal Apel would like to not see it pass. I'm back now. Today's a great day for a hot toddy. Do you guys know what a hot toddy is? So it's a great day for a hot boozy drink. I would say so. It's pretty cold out there, and a lot of you might be sick. Something's been going around. My folks are sick. A lot of coworkers of mine have gotten sick. So these, I swear by these. I really like hot toddies. Some say hot toddy. Some say like it's a hot boozy drink or a hot whiskey. But really, what it is, it's just a little bit of hot water, some lemon, some honey, and some bourbon. And this is used as a cure for the common cold. I think that this actually helps. I've done this before. I think it helps a little bit. Just tad of bourbon. My parents, they made me hot toddies. They're really good. I really when I was sick, obviously. Um, yeah. I love bourbon, and maybe this is where my love for bourbon comes from because a little bit of bourbon just gets me over that cold, and it just helps alleviate symptoms. I don't think it or symptoms. I think it doesn't cure it, but it helps alleviate those symptoms. It makes the pain go away of the head cold. But do you have a usual go-to for a cold or flu? I know it's that time of year, and what's your go-to to kind of get past the cold or alleviate some of your symptoms? I know a lot of things that have been passed down in my family. The hot toddy is one of them. So today is National Hot Toddy Day. I think it's a great day to have a hot toddy. Uh, one thing that I wanted to hit before we get into the Illinois state lawmaker who is calling on the Biden administration to close the U.S. southern border after he goes to Texas. That's Brad Holbrook. I wanted to talk about this Walmart Becky. Okay, so I don't know her actual name, but Walmart Becky is the latest youngin here. Now I am also Gen Z, but I call her a youngin. She's the latest youngin to discover or she discovers the hard way how the internet works. Okay, Becky here because she's gone viral. And on behalf of us old people, and I'm Gen Z, like I said, but on behalf of us old people and me, because I'm the exception really to my generation. I don't know what their problem is. Uh, we too would grow frustrated with our crappy retail jobs. Okay. So I used to be a waitress. I would grow frustrated with my waitress job all of the time. I just didn't live stream about it. Okay. I never live stream about how much I hated my job for some odd reason. These Gen Zers do that. And they live stream about how they don't like their retail jobs. we'd go out to our car, and this is what I would do. I'd go out to my car and I'd smoke a cigarette and say, well, there ain't much I can do about it, but it's an honest living. Okay. When I was a waitress. And I know a lot of you, maybe you're retail, maybe you're working retail, maybe you're working a service job, a server job. You don't live stream about how sucky your job is, okay? There's things about everybody's job that sucks. Uh, Not my job. I love my job. This is like breathing for me. I love it. It doesn't really even feel like a job, but uh, you make an honest living and you smoke a cigarette on your break. Like there's nothing you can do about the how crappy your retail job is. Now stop if you've heard stop me if you've heard this one before. A retail worker under a certain age, under the age of I'd say 21, has their first full-time job. They hate it, and then they claim you're the loser. The Gen Xers, the boomers, they claim you're the loser for spending the rest of your life uh, working a 9 to 5. They say that you're a loser because you work 9 to 5. Okay. They don't want to live their life like that. And it's your fault for making living so unaffordable. We've got to take a listen to this woman. You're going to understand what I'm saying here. Her name is Walmart Becky. I don't know her real name, but she's gone viral. And I think that this is important to play because I've got an explanation here as to why she's going through this. It's really because she keeps voting Democrat, but that's besides the point. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
I cannot stand how the news has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives. Let me put it in perspective for everybody who's a little confused here, okay? I work 5 days out of the week, 40 hours a week, okay? I do not make enough to live on my own. I would not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and eat. All by myself. I would not be capable of doing that. 20 years ago, when you were getting started, you could live on your own. 20 years ago, when you first started, you were able to do everything that I am now struggling to do. Let me add another perspective here. You've been working for 20 years. You have 20 years of working experience behind your belt. You have 20 years of experience in a career that has allowed you to gain raises, to get more money, to profit you in an economy that you created. You can sit here and you can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but I've been working my tail end off just to barely make it by. And respectfully, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I don't want to work my tail end off, wasting all of my life working just to barely be able to pay my bills. And that is what you created, not Gen Z. We're just here getting started. You've been doing it for the last 20 years. You tell me how it got ruined. We can sit here and we can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but you let the economy turn into what it did. You let it all run to hell. And now it's Gen Z's fault because we don't want to work to fix your mistakes.
Oh boy. So let's break it down. Okay. She says, I do not make enough to live on my own. I do not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and heat. All by myself, I would not be capable of doing that. 20 years ago, when you were getting started, you could live on your own. A couple of things here. I'll concede. I'll go ahead and concede that things are more expensive today than they've ever been. Okay. But while Walmart Becky here blames Gen X or the boomers for making things more expensive, her generation, they're the ones who got conned into voting for Joe Biden and the Democrat Party every single year. So by doing so, their disposable income has dropped 7.5% since 2021. Okay. So if you voted for Joe Biden, which I'm sure this girl did, and she got conned into voting for him, if she even votes, okay, your disposable income has dropped 7.5% since 2021, since Joe Biden took office. You're paying 16.7% more for milk since Joe Biden. You're paying 18.5% more for housing because of Joe Biden, 20.5% more for food at home, 24% more for eggs. You're paying 36% more in credit card debt. Okay, we've got 36% more in credit card debt. Politics aside, no one lived on their own 20 years ago. Okay, they had roommates. And in many cases, they had more than one roommate. They shared utilities. Perhaps they went grocery shopping instead of eating out or door dashing or drinking expensive coffees. Okay. Walmart Becky, they also reused their water bottles instead of rushing out to get the next plastic cup that they saw on TikTok. Okay. That costs about $100. Yes, I'm looking at the women who use Stanley cups. Um, though I will be fair, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps sometimes has its limits. It also goes back to decisions people made in late 2020, early 2021. Let's take a listen to this clip. This guy actually goes through a great explanation of the housing crisis and the timeline here. We're looking at the housing crisis, and this is a great explanation. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
The past 4 years is the problem. Check out the difference between 1995 to 2019 to 2023. So the complaining from us millennials started probably 2020, but this is why. So in 1995, the average house was $130,000. You put down 20%, that's $26,000. The interest rates were 7.8% back in 1995, and your principal and mortgage would be around $753. Now I'm going to save the average incomes for last. Now, 2019, $260,000, not bad over 25 years. It only doubled. So the down payment would be $52,000, and there was only a 4% interest rate. So the monthly payment for principal and interest was $993. So this difference was not bad at all. Here's where the jump happens. This is what, okay, 2023, the average home jumped to $419,000. The down payment would be $84,000. The interest rate was similar to 95, which is 7.24%, but that would leave you with a monthly payment of $2,283. Now let's go with the average incomes. In 1995, it was $29,000. In 2019, it was $56,000. In 2023, it is still $56,000. So in 1995, 31% of your income could be used for housing. You could get it into a house. In 2019, it was only 21% of your income. In 2023, it is 49% of your income, plus the cost of living, plus the cost of groceries. So the past 4 years is the problem. This is why millennials and first-time homebuyers are complaining now, because the disparity between 95 and 2019 over 25 years was not that big of a deal.
It's the last 4 years, folks. It's the last 4 years. 20 years ago, working in retail was the start of the journey. Okay, retail jobs, they're not meant to be the final destination, right? Maybe they wind up being the final destination, and that's okay too. But 20 years ago, that was not the case. 20 years ago, that was the start of the journey. Responsibilities can sometimes be difficult, yeah, but it comes with the territory of being a grown up or adulting, as the people who whine about having to grow up have started calling it. They call it adulting. No, it's time to be a grown up, honey. So, Walmart, Becky, I sympathize, but at the same time, your generation, they are the ones who get conned into voting for Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. So it's your fault. You're going through this. All right. I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz on Cities 92.9. Henry, thanks so much for pointing out the obvious. uh, what party was in charge at these times? Yeah, what party was in charge at these times? Every housing crisis, you can attribute that to the Democrat Party. Today is National Hot Toddy Day, so Henry, I do want to get to yours. For cough, I use lemon juice, honey, and alcohol. Your choice. Yeah, I do use bourbon. That's like a hot toddy. I use hot water, lemon juice, a little bit of honey, and some bourbon. mix it all together. That it's a hot toddy, and I swear by it. I swear by the hot toddies. Her parents supported her butt for 20 years. Yeah, yeah, exactly. This Walmart Becky, and I feel for her. I really do. And I'll concede, and I'll say yes, things are more expensive today, but that is because you got conned into voting for the Democrat Party, girl. And she didn't live 20 years ago. You lived 20 years ago, and likely 20 years ago when you were getting started and you had a retail job, you realized that that was a starting point and you sucked it up. Okay, you sucked it up. You smoked the cigarette on your break, and you didn't live stream about how much you hated your retail job, your first full-time job. Okay, I hated my McDonald's job. Okay, I was not a fan of it. Did I go on TikTok and live stream and complain? No, I buckled down, or I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, and I worked that full-time job, eventually kicked it off into a waitress job, and progressively, I mean, the waitress job under Trump's presidency, I made a lot of money as a waitress, and you can do that if you're not taxed to hell. But yeah, that this was a temporary job. It was the start of your journey 20 years ago. People understood that. And they also had roommates. They had roommates that would share utilities, would share the rent, multiple roommates at that. Um, my folks, they had a different experience. My dad, he was worked on a farm, so or lived with his parents until he met my mom, actually. Um, and he worked on the farm. Then my mom, she had roommates. She had roommates, and I split things with her siblings, and they all lived together. So yeah, and she had help along the way. So if you aren't so insufferable, maybe you would have friends so you could split the rent with somebody and move in with somebody. Okay. um, I don't make enough to live on my own. Okay, well maybe you shouldn't live on your own. Um, Maybe you should have roommates. All right. I do want to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about this Illinois lawmaker. He went down to the border. And then a little bit later, we've got Tony Fauci, Aaron Rodgers. I want to talk about these two stories. Tony Fauci was grilled by Congress. Now he claims that he does not recall much about the pandemic. And then Aaron Rodgers, he returns fire on Jimmy Kimmel. Of course, he accused Jimmy Kimmel of possibly being on the list. And, I really like his comments, though, on the narrative, on the COVID narrative, and I think these are a bit more biting than even his comments about Jimmy Kimmel. And I want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, and I mean, I love this guy more and more every day, so you're listening to The Morning Buzz. Smash the like button and share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. We're gonna get to it, I promise. Anthony Fauci, he was grilled in this committee hearing, And you know what really peeves me off about Anthony Fauci? Now he doesn't even have the enough respect to recall much about the pandemic. So he is claiming that he doesn't recall much about the pandemic, about its origins. So we're going to talk about Anthony Fauci here coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. We're also going to chat about Aaron Rodgers, and he returns fire on Jimmy Kimmel, which I'm all here for. But I think his comments on the narrative and his comments on how COVID, they lied to us and they locked us down, I think those are amazing. Amazing. Now, for a little bit of background, Aaron Rodgers kind of alleged that Jimmy Kimmel would wind up on the Epstein list that was released, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. And it turns out Jimmy Kimmel was on the list. He was named in these unsealed court documents, and uh, it turns out Aaron Rodgers was right in guessing that Jimmy Kimmel was possibly on that list. But Aaron Rodgers returning fire on Jimmy Kimmel because Jimmy Kimmel completely melted down and took shots at Aaron Rodgers after Aaron Rodgers said, "Hey, you're probably on the list on the Pat McAfee show." So I am going to be chatting a little bit about that here coming up. But first, I do want to get into this Illinois lawmaker. He sat down with the Center Square, Brad Holbrook, and what he said was jaw dropping. Okay. The Illinois state lawmaker, he went to El Paso, Texas, and he is calling on the Biden administration to close the U.S. southern border. Okay. Now, for some context, Illinois, we've seen about 30,000 migrants arrive here since August of 2022, which has left a lot of communities suffering. They need help in housing these migrants. And a lot of communities like our own, McLean County, they've adopted resolutions that deter migrants or aren't welcoming of migrants. So, for example, tonight at the McLean County Board meeting, they're supposed to be voting on a resolution uh, that says, hey, we're not going to use taxpayer funded services to house these migrants and to take care of these migrants that may possibly be dropped off here in McLean County. That was a resolution proposed by Chuck Erickson, and it goes before the McLean County Board tonight. City and state taxpayer funds to deal with this crisis. So far in the state of Illinois, they've totaled over $700 million in just the past year. Okay, so State Representative Brad Holbrook, a Republican, visited the border last week. He saw everything firsthand. He actually went with Chris Miller, Dan Calkins, the Freedom Caucus, and he said this. He says, it was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. I would advise everybody who's involved in policymaking to take a trip down there to see the real story um, and to get the truth when you're down there on the ground. You get the truth when you're down there on the ground. So I've got to take a quick break, but then he goes into a story about the migrants crossing the border and how he has seen, or this area has been seeing where he went, migrants cross this river. So I'm going to chat about that here coming up next on the Morning Buzz. Let's hear a word from our sponsors. All right, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Brad Holbrook. He went down to El Paso, Texas, and he said that the border needs to be closed. And I was telling you guys about this story. He said that there have been many people who have died in their attempt to cross the border into America. Joe Biden has got blood on his hands. Joe Biden's got blood on his hands. He says it's very eye-opening experience to go down there and to actually see the migrant crossings. And he said this area where he was at has seen thousands of migrants a day cross the river. And then he says one of the other stops we went was just east of town, just east of El Paso, which was a little pecan farm town. It was stunning. Um, it was a stunning stop to see how they are crossing the rivers. So they saw how the migrants are crossing the river. He said that a lot of folks have died trying to cross that river. He says people are drowning in the river. The farm we visited, 57 bodies were discovered in just 1 week on this pecan farm. 57 bodies were discovered in 1 week, just one, in the last few months. Okay. And this is just 1 week. This isn't even all of them. Okay. So there are bodies discovered on this little pecan farm in El Paso, Texas, east of El Paso. Many of those who cross are put onto buses and they're shipped to Democrat cities like Chicago, which is due in part to failed leadership. He said the border needs to be closed. The solutions are quite simple, but Governor J.B. Pritzker, the mayor of Chicago, and the president of the United States continue to ignore the solution to the problem. The solution is very simple: close the border. Holbrook and others have called for changes to the situation. Dan Calkins, Chris Miller, they went down there. People do not like this. They don't like it when you siphon off resources from citizens to migrants. Okay, people don't like it. And that is why McLean County Board member Chuck Erickson has this resolution out there. It's going to go before the county board tonight. And it says we're not going to be using taxpayer funded resource or taxpayer funded services to take care of these migrants. The best health care that JB delivers to people in Illinois is to non-citizens and to migrants. Okay. They all have better health care than Illinois residents, than Illinois citizens, than citizens of the US of A. Brad Holbrook said that it's time for legislation and it's time for Governor J.B. Pritzker to stop this 18th. I think he issued his 18th disaster proclamation to deal with this crisis. It's time to stop. All right, I do want to shift gears, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about Tony Fauci, Anthony Fauci. How did you sleep last night? If the answer is bad and you feel extra sluggish today, there's some bad news to tell you. It won't be the last bad night's sleep you're ever going to get this year. According to a new survey, the average American has about 100 bad sleeps a year. One of the key reasons for bad night's sleep is going to bed stressed out. A poll found that Americans get 120 good nights of sleep and 132 nights of perfect night's sleep. And about 65% of people said a bad night's sleep always ruins the following day. Did you get a bad night's sleep? Additionally, men are more likely to have bad night's sleeps than women, which is interesting. So I have been taking these like little melatonin like gummy things. I didn't take them last night because I try not to take those all of the time to try to get some better sleep. An Althini is what it is. Because that's supposed to break up the caffeine. You guys know that I'm a big coffee drinker. Maybe you got your cup of coffee this morning. I guess Althini helps break up that caffeine. And I take some supplements to try to sleep at night. They're not like sleeping pills because you want to be careful with those because then your body will stop producing melatonin naturally and then you'll be pretty reliant on those. And it's hard to find a sleeping pill that doesn't make you drowsy in the morning. But yeah, I've been supplementing and that's actually kind of worked out for me. I've been getting more sleep this year. So that's one of my New Year's goals is to try to supplement more. Vitamin D, zinc, to try to prevent things like getting sick or COVID. Speaking about getting sick, I asked you guys to text in 309-451-9299, or you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And you guys can let me know what you do to try to get over a cold or the flu. There's some tips and tricks. Henry, he says, for a cough, I use lemon juice, honey, and alcohol. Your choice. It really doesn't matter. So I've been talking about hot toddies because today is hot toddy day. It's a good day to drink a hot, boozy drink. I swear by these. These are it's something that they were passed down in my family. It's a hot toddy. It's just hot water, honey, lemon, and a splash of bourbon. And I swear it cures the common cold, or at least it alleviates symptoms. I'd rather do this than, cough syrup. I hate the cough syrups. I just don't like the taste of them. I also am not a big fan of like how drowsy they make you. But yeah, so hot toddy day. I know a lot of people are out there who a lot of people are getting sick this time of year. The best states to raise a family. Really quick, I want to run through these. Wallet Hub, they ranked recently the family friendliest states. And believe it or not, Illinois is not on there. The drag shows that the city of Bloomington hosts, that's not family friendly like they claim. No. So here are the top states: Massachusetts, North Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, New York made the list, Maine, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Those are the top 10 best states to raise a family. So they took took a look at things like divorce rates, violent crime per capita, percentage of families with kids, childcare costs, and median family income. So they looked at all of those things, and huh, I do like the Dakotas. I do like the Dakotas. All right, I'm back in the 7 o'clock hour. Next in the morning buzz. Hi, friends. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, and I do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. If you guys could do me a favor, if you're watching, smash the like button. That really helps me out, and I would love it if you subscribed to the YouTube channel. We are going to be coming back talking about Anthony Fauci because Anthony Fauci stood in front of the world stage, stood in front of the world for more than 2 years, lecturing the global population and how we've got to live our lives. Okay. That's what Anthony Fauci did for 2 years. He had such a God complex. It was so incredibly high that he went as far as to tell you that you weren't essential. Okay. And you weren't essential enough, even though you needed to feed your family. The policies he promoted may possibly have negative effects on generations to come. We have no idea what is going to happen in the next 20 years because of the pandemic, but we're going to have generational negative effects, I'd imagine. So, on top of that, pretty much everything he predicted didn't come to fruition, by the way. So, and the vaccine doesn't work. So, what does he have to say about all of that? Well, he says he doesn't recall. The guy does not recall much about the pandemic. Yes, he doesn't even have the respect to recall things, the science surrounding the pandemic, the origins of COVID-19, gain of function research. Now, he went and he was at on Capitol Hill and he was testifying behind closed doors. And he said several times, over 100 times actually, that he did not recall important information and conversations related to the origins of COVID-19. So we're going to get into all of that. Plus, Hunter Biden, there's this really funny clip, and I'm going to try to play this clip for us. I'm just having a hard time playing it on X. So we're going to take a listen to the reporter asking Hunter Biden what kind of crack he smokes, which is really funny. So, yes, we will be right back. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. Smash the like button. So, I found the clip. Here we go. This is The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. A reporter asked Hunter what kind of crack he prefers to smoke. What kind of crack do you prefer to smoke, Mr. Biden? Here's what it sounded like. Here we
Would
go.
you please, I'll answer your question if you be quiet and let me make a statement,
What kind
okay?
of crack do you normally smoke, Mr. Biden?
Would you please,
I love it. I love it. So, according to the Daily Mail, we've got Hunter Biden. He was there at the hearing and he skirted around a flurry of questions by reporters who swarmed him in the hallway. And, they wanted to ask questions about the allegations, where he put his then VP father, Joe Biden, on the phone with his foreign business clients on at least 20 different occasions. So this is evidence, okay, that was presented to Hunter Biden in this hearing. And the reporter says, "Why'd you have your dad on speakerphone if he had nothing to do with your business? Why'd you put him on speakerphone multiple times to talk to your business partners?" And Hunter, he shoots back at the reporter and he says, "Do you have a dad? Does he call you? Do you answer the phone?" Real arrogant. He's a real arrogant SOB. But we've got this reporter shooting back and she says, "Look, yeah, I got a dad. But why did you need to talk to him during your business meetings if he had nothing to do with your business?" So she pressed one more time and he loses his marbles here, folks. And then he says, "You're dangerous. You're very dangerous." And then all of a sudden in the crowd, you can't see the reporter, which makes it beautiful. You can't see the reporter. It's this crowd of reporters. There's like a moment of silence. And then from the silence breaks this question: "Oh, what kind of crack do you normally smoke, Mr. Biden?" In the flat monotone, like, "What kind of crack do you normally smoke, Mr. Biden?" This guy has had enough. He's like, We're not even like, this guy is ridiculous. He's a crack addict, and we're sitting here trying to get him to make sense. No, we're not going to make it make sense. Um, Now, this was the easiest question, I think, for Hunter to answer. What kind of crack do you normally smoke? Okay. We all know that Hunter is the smartest man that Joe knows, although I don't agree with that statement. He comes off very, very, very arrogant. He's an arrogant SOB. That's what Hunter Biden is. Now, he's on some sort of media tour trying to make himself look like he's some sort of victim. He even went as far as to claim that Republicans are trying to kill him. Quote, they're trying to destroy the presidency, says Hunter. And then he says, what they're trying to do is kill me, knowing that the pain, it will be a pain greater than my father could be able to handle, therefore destroying the presidency in that way. Wow. Then he goes on, he says, these are very sad, sick people. And they've likely faced traumas in their lives, and they've decided to go decided they're going to turn into an evil, and they've decided that they're going to inflict that evil on the rest of the world. This is what Hunter Biden says. He's trying to make us believe that he's a victim in all of this, and he's the victim because his daddy is president. The ironic thing is he's not a victim at all. He's not a victim because he's got that last name. Okay, anybody else in Hunter Biden's shoes, he's a crack addict. I mean, he would be living in a tent smoking crack in California. Okay. But instead, he's living in a mansion in Malibu. What kind of job has Hunter ever had that wasn't because of his daddy's connections? And I don't know what kind of crack Hunter smokes. It's actually news to me. I didn't know there were different types of crack, but if I had to guess, and I'm sure he's smoking the best crack, probably the good stuff, because this guy gets everything he wants because he's daddy's little princess. Okay. I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci, he got grilled. Tony Fauci stood before the world on the world stage, and for more than 2 years, he lectured the global population on how we were supposed to live our lives. Okay, he did that for 2 years, and he had such a God complex that, I mean, it was so incredibly high, this God complex. He went as far as to tell you that you weren't essential, even though you needed to feed your family, and you weren't essential. So he had a God complex. The policies he promoted may possibly have negative effects on generations to come, on all kinds of generations. 20 years from now, where are we going to be at because of the COVID-19 pandemic? Who knows? And on top of all of that, everything that this guy predicted did not come to fruition. And on top of all of that, he pushed a vaccine that doesn't work. Schmaxine, it doesn't work. Okay, the vaccine does not work. And I would argue that it actually is more harmful than good. So, what does he have to say about all of this? He says, "I do not recall." He doesn't recall anything about the pandemic. He didn't even care enough to come up with some sort of excuse to defend his incompetency. He just is copping out, and he's saying, I don't recall, I don't recall. So, according to the National Review, testifying behind closed doors, Capitol Hill, Dr. Fauci, he said over 100 times that he did not recall important information and conversations related to the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. pandemic response he presided over. The face of our nation's response to the world's worst public health crisis does not recall key details about the COVID-19 origins or the pandemic related or pandemic era policies. Okay. He was the face of the nation's response to the worst public health crisis we've probably ever been in as a nation. And what? He didn't recall the key details about the pandemic? He doesn't recall COVID-19 origins? This is ridiculous. The House Coronavirus Select Subcommittee chairman, his name is Brad Wenstrup. He's a Republican out of Ohio. He said this in a statement. This was a potentially preventable pandemic, and it ultimately resulted in the deaths of 1.2 million Americans. This is what the Ohio Republican said. In late November, the Ohio Republican who chairs this select subcommittee about the coronavirus, he announced in late November that Fauci had agreed to testify before his subcommittee in a private setting over the course of 2 days. So this was closed doors, it wasn't available to the public. Now, before retiring at the end of 2022, Fauci served as the director of the NIH, or in the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious uh, Diseases, and he was the chief medical advisor under Trump and the Biden administrations. His response was grossly incompetent at best. He's the perfect embodiment of a narcissist, Tony Fauci is. And the weirdest part about all of this, about all that, is that he doesn't even recall. He does not even recall whether or not he funded research that may or may not have started this whole debacle, this whole coronavirus pandemic. He doesn't even recall. How can a man who constantly told us to follow the science doesn't know anything about the science? It's a shame he did not shut his mouth, keep his mouth shut like he did in 2022 and thereafter after he retired. I wish he would have kept his mouth shut in 2020 like he's doing now. I wish he would have just kept his mouth shut. According to an X post from the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, quote, Dr. Fauci profusely defended his previous testimony where he stated the NIH does not fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Today, he repeatedly played word games with the definitions of gain-of-function in an attempt to avoid conceding that the NIH funded this dangerous research. The NIH paid for China to do this dangerous gain-of-function research, and the gain of function research got leaked out and killed, what did I say? It was like 1.2 million Americans plus more. Okay, those are just Americans. 1.2 million Americans died. 1.2. And he can't even show, Tony Fauci can't even show the tiniest bit of respect by recalling. All I want him to do is recall what went on. That's all we want him to do. But that's too much to ask for a man who decided it was a good idea to shut down the world. All right, I do have to take a break. I want to come back. Aaron Rodgers returning fire to Jimmy Kimmel's angry rant. So Jimmy Kimmel went on an angry rant. Aaron Rodgers, he returned on the Pat McAfee show. And he's the Jets quarterback, by the way, Aaron Rodgers, if you didn't know. And but there's something more that I like about what Aaron Rodgers said, and it has to deal with the Fauci era of American history. And I think his comments here are amazing. I think this is what we should focus on. Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, he took shots at him, and rightfully so. Jimmy Kimmel was found on the Jeffrey Epstein list, per se. It was court documents, and he was named in those court documents, Jimmy Kimmel. And allegedly, there was a woman whom she said that Jimmy Kimmel suggested that the two of them have sex, and she was, being trafficked, sex trafficking. That's what Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of. So she was sex trafficked to Jimmy Kimmel. Allegedly, that's according to the victim in these court documents. So I will take a break. We're going to come back. Let's take a listen to a word from our sponsors. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We are going to get to Aaron Rodgers returning fire on Jimmy Kimmel, but I actually liked a couple of other comments he had on the Pat McAfee show, and we're going to get to Aaron Rodgers and what he had to say about the FAUCI era. The FAUCI era. And then we will be visiting, hopefully, with Dan Calkins. I'm going to call him, wake him up, and we're going to chat a little bit about his time at the southern border. Today, I did go through some very disturbing things that Brad Holbrook had seen while he was down there. So the Freedom Caucus went there. It was Dan Calkins, Brad Holbrook, Chris Miller. Not sure if Adam Niemerg went, but Brad Holbrook said that while he was down there was this area where um, there was a farm, a pecan farm, and 57 bodies were pulled out of this river in just 1 week. So it was just 1 week where they found 57 bodies. And what we're doing to these migrants with these policies, with these open border policies, is disturbing, and it's state sanctioned uh, human trafficking. Really, that's what it is. It's state sanctioned human trafficking, and we need to close the border. All right, we're back. Man, I think I've got everybody on this hot toddy kick. Everybody's asking me, "Hey, Kat, how do you make your hot toddy? How much of each ingredient do you uh, make the hot toddy with?" It's been years since I've made one. Today is National Hot Toddy Day, and I just know a lot of people who are sick. So I wanted to say that yes, I have done hot toddies since I've been a little girl. This is a family thing that has been passed down, and I swear by it. It alleviates symptoms at the very least. I'm not going to say it cures the common cold. Not a doctor. Not a doctor. But I don't know what it is. A little bit of hot water, some honey, some lemon, and some bourbon. So it depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like I kind of want to get buzzed, I'll probably do half bourbon, half hot water. No, I probably do about 2 tablespoons of bourbon, probably about 1 lemon, and probably about 3 tablespoons of honey because I like mine extra sweet. 3 tablespoons is quite a lot. You could probably get by with 1 tablespoon. And it kind of depends on how much water you have. So I use about, I don't know, 2 cups of hot water and I put it in a little thermos and I drink that. Um, but yeah, I swear by it. And today is a good day for a hot, boozy drink because we do have some snow possibly coming in. I looked at a couple of things this morning and it looks like it's not going to get down to like cold temperatures like they were saying for this Friday storm, but we could possibly see some snow, some little bit of rain. We saw that earlier in the week, and I'd imagine we're going to get it tomorrow morning and Thursday night, possibly tonight. So, before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, and I want to get to this story, and then we're going to call Dan Calkins, State Representative Dan Calkins, because I want to wake him up for the morning buzz, but I also want to talk about what Brad Holbrook said, because Brad Holbrook was at the border, El Paso. He, Dan Calkins, Chris Miller, and some members of the Freedom Caucus, and there were some disturbing things that Brad Holbrook said he saw, specifically the 57 bodies they told him there in El Paso that they drug out of the river because people are crossing over the border via a river. There's a river there, and they're drowning in the river, and they had to pull out 57 bodies in just 1 week. It's disturbing. Okay, so I do want to talk about this. Aaron Rodgers, he returns to the Pat McAfee show. And he responded to Jimmy Kimmel's angry rant. So Jimmy Kimmel went on an angry rant because Aaron Rodgers had said that he thinks that Jimmy Kimmel might appear on the Jeffrey Epstein client list. And lo and behold, Aaron Rodgers was correct, kind of. So Jimmy Kimmel his name did appear in court documents that were unsealed a couple of weeks ago. And the Jets quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, understands, quote, why the late night host comedian would be offended by people thinking he was a pedophile. Yeah, so in the court documents, I talked about how Jimmy Kimmel was named, and a victim had said that, or was questioned, and she said in these court documents that Jimmy Kimmel had suggested the pair of them have sex. And this is a victim of sex trafficking. This is a part of Jeffrey Epstein's human sex trafficking that was going on Epstein's Island, and Jimmy Kimmel was named in these unsealed court documents. So Rodgers, he was on the Pat McAfee show, and he even was complimentary of the comedian Jimmy Kimmel, and he praised his impressiveness as a man. who went to Arizona State and has 10 joke writers who can read off a prompter. So yeah, so he took a shot at Jimmy Kimmel. He said, "Yeah, this is a guy who's got 10 joke writers and he can read off a prompter and he went to Arizona State and he's just very impressive." Okay. I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's amazing, and I'm glad that somebody of his celebrity status is speaking out against not only Jeffrey Epstein's associates, alleged associates, but he also said something that I think is far more important. Not, and you're like, whoa, Kat, far more important than Jeffrey Epstein's client list. This is pretty important. Roger said, and he made some comments about how he's not going to stop talking about the Fauci era. And I don't think we should stop talking about it. And we definitely shouldn't forget it because 1.2 million Americans died. Okay, that happened. And then we funded the gain of function research that was going on in Wuhan, China. And look, the Fauci era of American history should not go down, and just we shouldn't forget about it. Okay, so because this is never going to stop. This is what he says. Aaron Rodgers. He goes, "This is never going to stop for the rest of his career." Aaron Rodgers, every time he does anything, anytime he does anything, they're going to bring up the time in 2022 when he went against the left's narrative. We know that Aaron Rodgers, he said that he wasn't going to get vaccinated and that he wasn't vaccinated. And it wasn't just that, though. The media is going to look for reasons to go after Aaron Rodgers and to criticize everything he does for the rest of his life because he went against the left's narrative once. Okay. And the media, they're going to do the same to Pat McAfee because even though he's apolitical, he platformed Rodgers, and that's a sin. Okay. If you platform alternative narratives to the left's narrative, then you are just as bad as the guy who's going against the narrative, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so he's going to be dealing with this for the rest of his career. They're never going to stop. They're going to constantly criticize him. They're never going to shut up about it. And Roger said, "You know what? Neither will I. I'm never going to shut up about what they did to us in 2020 and what they did during the Fauci era of American history." So here's a quote from Rogers. Quote, "Well, let's see what happened. They locked everybody up. It was supposed to be for a couple of weeks, but they locked everybody up. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed and never opened again. Dozens of people I know in their 30s have poured everything into these small businesses and restaurants and bars, and they never opened again. They lost everything. This is key. And while all the focus is on Rodgers and his medical decisions about how he didn't want to get vaccinated, and he said the famous words of, 'I'm immunized, even though I don't have the vaccine, I have natural immunity.' He was speaking out about those lockdowns and about people's livelihoods far before he said those words, 'I'm immunized,' and far before he criticized the vaccine. Okay. From the beginning, this guy, Aaron Rodgers, has blasted the government and their hypocrisy of, don't eat out at that restaurant unless you're wearing a mask. Okay. Or, oh, yeah, here's a picture of the California governor, although he's violating his own rules and he's dining out and he's not wearing a mask. Oh, public schools are closed, by the way, but hey, here's me, CPS, Chicago Public Schools, Chicago Teacher Union president. I'm going to send my kids to a private school in person, right? Or I'm going to shut down the Invest in Kids Act, even though I send my kids to a private school and I can afford it. But the Invest in Kids Act, there's a lot of folks who can't afford it, and they used that program to send their kids to alternative schools because public schools suck. Anyway, sorry, I went I derailed there for a second. I say hate the CTU and I hate CPS, but Aaron Rodgers, he continues, and he said this on the Pat McAfee show. They lied to us many times over about the pandemic. They locked us up. They closed our businesses. They increased mental health issues exponentially. The rates of suicide went straight up. They vilified us. They have and I have a problem with that because now people are just like, move on. Move on. Sorry, I'm not going to move on. No, 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 no. And it's almost as if, look, the left, they want him to focus on the vaccine. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to focus on the vaccine, and I'm going to keep focusing on the issues here where they They were hypocritical, or they had hypocrisy where they said don't eat out at restaurants unless you're wearing a mask, and then the government themselves, and for example, Governor J.B. Pritzker's daughter, okay, Teddy Pritzker. I saw her on Instagram, and she's out in Florida, and she's bar hopping, and she's riding horses during the pandemic. And Governor J.B. Pritzker, I was forced to not wait tables anymore during the pandemic. I had to carry around a little piece of paper that said I was a essential employee. I had to keep it in my visor in my car just in case I got stopped by the Gestapo, the police. And if they questioned me, hey, what are you doing out and about? We're supposed to be we're under a stay at home order, a shelter in place order. All right, I do have to take a quick break. We're going to try to get Dan Calkins on the line. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Hey, Hunter, what kind of crack do you prefer? A reporter asked Hunter Biden what kind of crack he prefers. And today I learned that there are different types of crack. I did not know that. But if I had to guess, I bet Hunter Biden smokes the best type of crack. He probably smokes the best. And here's the reason why. Hunter Biden, he claims he's a victim, but the ironic thing is here, he's not a victim because he's got that last name, Biden. If it weren't for his family covering for him and covering his butt and treating him like a little princess, he'd be living in a tent smoking crack in California rather than living in a mansion in Malibu, in his mansion in Malibu. I mean, that's what kind of job has Hunter ever held? Like, what job has Hunter ever had that was not because of his daddy's connections? I mean, come on. All right. I am going to be chatting about that here coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But right now, you know him, you love him. He's one of my favorite guests, Dan Calkins, the state representative who was down in El Paso, Texas, and that's kind of where I want to start because people's jaws dropped. I mean, I could hear it, their jaws dropping this morning when I was talking about how Brad Holbrook said you guys visited a farm and they pulled 57 bodies out in just 1 week on this pecan farm that was just east of El Paso, I believe. So Dan,
Eagle
tell
Pass.
me, or Eagle Pass. What 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 kind of experiences did you have?
Good morning, Kat. And it's an experience that we'll never forget. That's for sure. Brad was talking about this husband and wife who have this pecan farm. I mean, it's trees, groves of trees, and their land stretches to to the river, to the border. I mean, it's interesting that an individual, can own property that touches the border, but that's the case all across, Texas and Arizona. I mean, people's property, borders Mexico. But because it's a groves of trees in a large expanse of land, the migrants, cross the river and then hide out in their trees. And of course, in the summertime, the conditions are really harsh and travel. And we sat down and talked to these people and walked their land and walked the border, with them where the government has actually stolen, I guess, claimed or staked out a portion of their property, which has created a huge environmental problem because now, as you can imagine, trucks driving up and down, their property, 24 hours a day. A big fence has been erected, concertina wire against their wishes. But, wasn't they also pointed out to us a tree on their land where a border patrol agent had committed suicide, fully in gear. He just couldn't take it anymore. And we talked to several members of the border patrol, and their stories are just harrowing, and they go home every night to their families, and they live this nightmare every day, every night, and the toll on them is just harrowing. I can't imagine doing that job and what it must do to an individual psychologically, physically, and the toll that it takes on people's families. It's just gut wrenching.
Yeah, well, and I kind of want to get your reaction to this, and I don't know what your counterparts, Dave Kaler, Sharon Chung, what they would have to say about what's going on here in McLean County. We've got a resolution that goes before the McLean County Board tonight, and this resolution talks about, hey, we're not going to spend taxpayer funded services we're not going to use taxpayer funded services to house the migrants and to take care of these migrants. That's essentially what the resolution says. But there's a Democrat on the county board who said this about the resolution. He said it's disgusting, racist, ignorant, discriminatory. It's the most discriminatory piece of baloney. I can't say the other word. He used an expletive on his public Facebook page. I mean, the decorum here is just top notch. But um, he says this about that resolution, and I wanted to ask your thoughts about a county board member, a Democrat, saying this, and that's a sentiment. I mean, I don't know what Sharon Chung and Dave Kaler, what they think about it. Obviously, they are your counterparts here in McLean County. They um, serve as Senator Dave Kaler and then a Representative Sharon Chung. She's in the 91st. That encompasses a lot of Bloomington Normal. But your thoughts about that resolution? Is that something McLean County should be adopting?
Well, I think that's, I try not to, we don't get involved in the local
Mm-hmm.
legislative process, but I'm definitely believe that every unit of government in Illinois should have some kind of a plan in place. I don't know what Governor Pritzker is going to do, but they've got huge problems in Chicago. We hear about it every day. I'm sure next week when we go to Springfield, there'll be some discussion. Maybe not, because maybe the Democrats don't want to talk about this stuff before the primary coming up in March.
Mm.
But every government needs to be prepared. It needs to have a plan of some sort in place. And McLean County is right there at the crosshairs. Two interstates, a rail system that and an airport. I think it's wise to be thinking ahead. I think it's they need to have a plan. They need to understand what they're doing. I know here in Macon County, there's a plan in place. It's not a big public brouhaha about it.
Mm.
But our social service agencies have come together. In fact, here, this whole thing in Macon County started with the Afghanis, coming to the United States after the terrible, withdrawal from Afghanistan. We brought plane loads of people to the United States, and they were up at Fort McCoy. A large number of them were, and we put together an organization, just a kind of a loosely held organization of employers and social service agencies and private citizens, and we were prepared, and actually this group went up to Fort McCoy to interview people. So Macon County, not making any big splash or waves or public pronouncements, but we have a plan in place here. We have organizations that have stepped up, and I've been working together for a couple of years now. So I think McLean County should be doing the same thing.
Yeah. I do want to shift gears and get to this before I got to get to break. Dan Calkins, the U.S. Supreme Court denied your challenge to the Illinois gun and magazine ban. And really what your challenge, I loved it. I was in love with your challenge because it really looked at the ethics of the Illinois Supreme Court. You looked at, hey, this is a conflict of interest. Illinois Supreme Court Justice Mary O'Brien, Elizabeth Rockford, they both took millions from the defendants in this case.
Yeah.
So your thought, or how do you feel that the U.S. Supreme Court denied your challenge?
Well, I'm disappointed, obviously, Kat. We have, a perfect example of if not actual bias, at least a perceived bias. These two judges in their campaign were heavily endorsed by anti-Second Amendment groups. That they accepted those endorsements. They were also, their campaign individually were heavily financed by the governor, who obviously knew that he was going to push this anti-Second Amendment. They call it an assault weapons bill. I mean, he knew he was going to be doing that, and he wanted them on the court. They were also endorsed and heavily supported by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. It makes it very hard to believe that a person is going to get a fair hearing at the Illinois Supreme Court on any Second Amendment issue. That was our case. But I think the broader implication is that anyone who has a challenge, who is challenging a law in Illinois or has a dispute with the governor and ends up in the Illinois Supreme Court, they've got the same problem. And I just think that the perception of corruption, and that's not it's a legal term. I'm using it, I think the court's tainted. I think these two judges are tainted, and it presents a huge problem. The perception of equal justice in Illinois. We may have another opportunity to go back to them. We're working on it, and I don't understand it, but we're working on another legal angle. But it's not good for Illinois. I wish that they would have done something at the U.S. Supreme Court, but they're pretty busy these days with a lot of other nationally important issues. So we gave it our best try. I think it was a great, our lawyers did an excellent job. We just were one of the 200 and almost 50 appeals to the court that got denied. And I'm sure the rest of them, the other folks that got denied, feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not too sure. Do you know if there's a federal case? Because you were the only state case that was before the Supreme Court of the United States at this conference here. Now, there's other federal cases that pertain to the assault weapons ban, correct?
Correct. And those cases are going. And the one Judge McGlynn down in East St. Louis in the district court, and Mr. Beavis up in Naperville. I mean, they're actively pursuing those cases, and that's the problem with another problem, that any individual or organization that brought a Second Amendment complaint by courts were immediately denied and sent to the federal court system. So even if we had taken this case
The 2A route,
in a Second Amendment rather than the 14th Amendment, if we'd have gone after a Second Amendment appeal, the Illinois courts weren't hearing them. They wouldn't hear a Second Amendment appeal. All of them were sent to the federal court system through the McGlynn in the Southern District, particularly. Ended up with those cases. So, we chose to go a 14th Amendment, which we won. I mean, this law was unconstitutional from the time we got a decision in Macon County until the time that the Illinois Supreme Court overturned Macon County. So essentially, this law has been declared unconstitutional, and the people of Illinois were free from it from the time we got our decision in Macon County and until the time that the Illinois Supreme Court issued their decision.
right?
So
Yeah.
we've
Well,
had
and
we've had that.
one thing I do want to say, and I am not, trying to disparage the U.S. Supreme Court at all, but maybe they decided to go with the federal cases and not hear your case because your case dealt with something that is a little sticky, something like ethics. And yeah, I know that sounds terrible to say, but maybe they didn't want to deal with an ethics because really that's what your case gets at the heart of it. It questions the conflicts of interest of two judges, and maybe the U.S. Supreme Court was like, I don't know, this pertains to the same thing, this federal case, so let's just focus on these ones because it's essentially the same thing, but like we don't have to answer to the question of, are these Illinois Supreme Court justices shady? uh,
Shady.
shady, like because the U.S. Supreme Court, if they took your case, they'd have to step on some toes. They'd have to answer the question, hey, are these two Illinois Supreme Court justices shady characters in that they were, had a bias when they presided over this case back when they first heard it?
Well, they had, and this is part of our disappointment. They could have looked at our case, which they did, and they could have decided that yes, because the state of Illinois didn't respond. They didn't argue against our complaint. They just they bypassed the opportunity to respond to our complaint. Governor Pritzker and all, when the U.S. Supreme Court gave them until December 14th, 30 days to respond to our request for a hearing, they waived that right to respond, essentially admitting to the facts.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was all
That-
laid out. I mean, you had the state not even responding.
Yeah, they didn't respond. So they essentially admitted to the facts in our pleadings
Mhm.
that this happened. They didn't deny it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
But
the
I
U.S.
agree
Supreme
with you.
Court did not even really, I mean, they didn't take that on, even having the state deny a response. Like, they didn't even respond to the U.S. Supreme Court. So I don't
Right.
know.
Well,
It's disappointing, but
it is.
I'm looking forward to what you've got cooking. Hopefully, another legal argument, and then you bring it back.
Well, we will certainly, we're talking about it amongst ourselves, so to speak. Here,
Mhm.
Our legal team, is looking at any other opportunity we may have. But I think the one benefit of this is that we have publicly shown the light nationally. I mean, this has gotten national attention. Our case has gotten national attention, and now the whole country knows about our Illinois Supreme Court.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Dan Calkins. I got to take a quick break, but you have a great rest of your day, and thanks for waking up so early.
great. Yeah, thanks, Kat.
All right, folks, we're back in just a little bit. You're listening to the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Oh boy, that the end of the hour just sneaks up on me, folks. We're gonna be back here on the Morning Buzz, 8 o'clock, and I've got so much to cover. One thing that I do want to get to is this Walmart employee. I'm gonna call her Becky. She is the latest lazy Gen Z worker to complain on TikTok about how she can't afford to live, and she's blaming the Gen Xers. So we'll get to that here in the 8 o'clock hour. You're listening to the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can go ahead, smash that like button. We're going to be back talking a little bit about Donald Trump. So, Donald Trump, he was on Fox News, and apparently he knows who his VP is going to be. So, in the comments section, let me know who you think his VP is going to be. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be Kristi Noem. I would, I would much prefer Vivek Ramaswamy, or I would like to see Tucker Carlson. Um, I think those would be great choices for VP, but most likely he's going to have some sort of woman or some sort of, Kristi Noem or maybe Carrie Lake, which I wouldn't be too upset about if it was Carrie Lake. But Donald Trump, he also answers to the abortion issue. And he does it very eloquently, where he talks about how we're not the radicals. People on the right are not the radicals. Republicans aren't the radicals when it comes to the abortion issue. It's really the left who is radical on this issue. They are for killing babies at 8 months, 9 months, and even after birth, folks. And here in the state of Illinois, it's even more insane than that. Because we've got Governor J.B. Pritzker, Kwame Raoul going after pregnancy resource centers for so-called deceptive practices. Now, I believe all of that has been shut down. I'd have to do some more digging, but I mean, here we go as far as to say that you don't need parental consent. You can be 12 years old, want an abortion, jump into a clinic, and jump into the chair and get the abortion at 9 months. Okay, that it's extreme abortion here in the state of Illinois, and it's because Governor J.B. Pritzker is a radical. And the way Donald Trump puts this is just the way every Republican should tackle this issue, the abortion issue. So I'm back. Next, smash the like button. MTG. Yeah, MTG would be a great one. Yeah, Barrett already showed her true colors. Yeah, federal lawsuits will prevail. This law is not going to hold up in the end. Have faith and not register. Yeah, so like I said, I don't think that the Supreme Court took Dan Calkins' case because maybe it dealt with ethics issues. And uh, believe it or not, they're all justices, and the thing of it is, you're not in the clique. They're all in the clique together. These politicians, judges, and people in government are in a clique. They are the, and we are the we. Okay, so I'm back next. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for texting in. You can always text in at 309-451-9299. Ryan, he says the federal lawsuits, they have to prevail. The law is not going to hold up in the end. Have faith and do not register. And yeah, I like how Bob says, he goes, Barrett already showed her true colors. So we were talking with Dan Calkins, and as you know, the Supreme Court of the United States denied Dan's challenge to the Illinois gun magazine ban. And really, what his challenge had in it was questions about the conflicts of interest at the Illinois Supreme Court level, because we've got Mary O'Brien and we've got Elizabeth Rockford. They both took money from the defendants, in which the defendants of the case they heard. So this is an appearance of a bias. Okay. And I said, and I'm not trying to disparage the U.S. Supreme Court. However, it might have been easier for them to take a federal case and not Dan's state case, because the U.S. Supreme Court probably doesn't want to answer the question, hey, were the justices Mary O'Brien and Elizabeth Rockford, were they biased in their ruling? Because that deals with ethics, and everybody's got issues and probably demons in their closet. And maybe these U.S. Supreme Court justices weren't willing to judge on the issue of ethics. Perhaps these justices on the U.S. Supreme Court level have things funneled into their campaigns that they're not exactly proud of. And this kind of opens up Pandora's box when it comes to judges and ethics, and if they should be taking money at all from anybody. And yeah, so I don't know. I hope that the federal cases that the federal lawsuits prevail, like Ryan said on the text line or in the comments section on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Before we took the break, I was telling you guys a little bit about Donald Trump and who he's going to have for VP. Apparently, he knows who his VP is going to be. He was on Fox News, and well, I'll let him tell you what he has to say about a potential VP. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
I'll give you. We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with
Oh,
any
sure,
of
I
them?
will. I will. I've already started like Christie better.
Christie
No,
for vice president?
I don't see it. I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce.
Who would be in the running?
Oh boy. Well, as you know, Chris Christie dropped out of the race. Doug Burgum, who I'm convinced he must powder himself because Doug Burgum is as white as a ghost. Have you guys ever seen Doug Burgum's face? Like that guy needs a tanning bed. But Doug Burgum dropped out. Now we've got Chris Christie dropping out, and you know, Donald being Donald, he makes a joke and he goes, "Yeah, I've already started liking Christie better." Well, earlier that day, Chris Christie dropped out. That's why Donald Trump said that. Yeah, I've already started to like him a little better because he dropped out. Donald Trump, I don't know who he's going to select as his VP. If I had to guess, it's going to be a woman. Kristi Noem, likely, perhaps Carrie Lake. I would like to see Vivek Ramaswamy. I would also like to see Tucker Carlson. So that's just my 2 cents. Who do you think he would select as a VP? We've got a couple of comments. They said MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think that would be a great option. She is too controversial, though. I don't think that they're going to pick Marjorie Taylor Greene. Although I don't know why. I mean, they really don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Did you know that I think it was on Christmas Day she got swatted? These Democrats are rabid, and they just swat her house all of the time. So she is high up there on the Democrats' most hated. But then also Henry says that he would like Vivek Ramaswamy. Crispy Christie for VP. Yeah, let's hope not. I would not want Chris Christie as VP. I don't think that's going to happen, folks. But there was also something else he said in this town hall. It was an Iowa town hall on Fox News. He was sitting down with the folks from Fox News, and he answers this abortion question beautifully. And every Republican needs to take note of this. You don't need to. One thing, I don't think Trump has ever been strong on this abortion issue, as strong as I'd like him to be, because he's not a conservative, folks. I mean, banning bump stocks, I think that's what they're called. He also hasn't been strong on the abortion issue. Guy's not a conservative. He's a populist. Donald Trump answers the question here beautifully, though. And every Republican, I mean, all the way down to the state legislative races, they need to answer the question like this. And you need to hold your opponent's feet to the fire and ask where they stand on the abortion issue as far as when. When is the cutoff for you? Is it 9 months, Sharon Chung? Is it, after birth? Are you okay with clubbing the baby in the head after the birth? Donald Trump actually quotes, I believe, the Virginia governor, and the Virginia governor came out and said that it'd be okay after birth to set the baby aside and to ask the mother if they should euthanize or really kill the baby post a birth. So Donald Trump answers this very beautifully. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
Tearing our country apart for 50 years. Nobody's been able to do anything. And again, you can only ask that question, and you ask it brilliantly. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. I love where you're coming from. But we still have to win elections. And they've used this. We have some great Republicans, and they're great on the issue. And you would love them on the issue. And a lot of them have just been decimated in the election. Decimated. I mean, absolutely. So we're going to come up with something that people want and people like. I would love you to, first of all, you have to go with your heart. Okay. You have to go with your heart first. Go with your heart, your mind, go with it. But you do also have to put in there a little bit. You have to win elections. But if it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this up. You wouldn't be asking that question because we're right back. I remember this. They're the radicals. We're not the radicals. because they'll kill a baby. Remember, I had the debate with crooked Hillary Clinton, which I don't call her crooked anymore. I use it now for Joe Biden, as you know. I call her beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But in the debate with Hillary Clinton, I said, you know, she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And, you know, I never heard this. It happened to me. It just came to me during that debate. I didn't go up there thinking I was going to say that. And she even winced. Nobody wants to see that happening after a certain period of time. Nobody. They're the radicals because they're willing to kill the baby in 8 months, 9 months, or even after birth. If you remember the former governor of Virginia, where he said, you kill the baby after the 9th month, or even afterwards, you set the baby aside and you have a conversation with the mother. And if the conversation, can you imagine? But these are the radicals. We're not the radicals. We are not the radicals. But we're living in a time when there has to be a little bit of a concession one way or the other. And I think, you know, I want to get it right. I have to get it right. But without what I did, you would never even be asking that question, because there was no chance that that was going to happen. For 54 years, they campaigned on that issue and nobody pulled it off but me. So I think you're going to be happy.
Yes, like I said, that is the way you answer the abortion question. I mean, you have to hold their feet to the fire. Okay, Sharon Chung, where do you stand? Is 9 months okay? 8 months? 7 months? After birth? You have to. You have to, because they're the radicals, we're not. And Illinois, it's absolutely insane. I mean, no parental consent. A 12-year-old can walk into a clinic and have an abortion at 9 months. It's absurd. And then they've gone after the pregnancy resource centers where they offer alternatives to abortion, because an abortion, I don't care who you are, it's got to be hard on that woman. Okay. Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. This is not something to be proud of. It's not something that is an amazing thing that a woman has to go through. Right. And these resource centers, they help with alternatives, living alternatives, right here in Bloomington. They have a location in Lincoln. They're attacked by the state all of the time. They say they practice deceptive practices. They have deceptive practices, and then they try to go and fine them. Kwame Rule, the attorney general, goes and tries to fine them $50,000. I mean, a pop. That's ridiculous. So I want to get to this. Reporter asking Hunter Biden what kind of crack he prefers. This was amazing. From the Daily Mail, Hunter skirted around a flurry of questions by reporters. He was in the hallway when he left this hearing, and talked about the allegations of how he put his then VP father, Joe Biden, on the phone when he was in these foreign business meetings and on the phone with foreign business clients. And they have evidence, 20 different occasions where Joe was on the phone. And a reporter comes up to Hunter and says, "Hey, why was your dad on speakerphone if he had nothing to do with your business? You put him on speakerphone multiple times to talk to your business partners. Why did you do that?" Then he says, "Well, do you have a dad? Does he call you? Do you answer the phone?" And then the reporter goes, "Yeah, first of all, we're not talking about me." Okay, but second of all, why did you put him on the phone during business meetings if he had nothing to do with your business? She pressed again. And then here's where Hunter shuts down. He goes, "You're dangerous. You're very dangerous." And then he walks away. But then a reporter from the crowd, you can't see the reporter. There's like all of this shouting of questions, flurry of questions. And then it kind of this guy's voice breaks the silence, and he goes, "What kind of crack do you normally smoke, Hunter, Mr. Biden?" And I love it because it's such a monotone question. And then Hunter Biden, of course, heads out the door and leaves the office building. He doesn't answer what kind of crack he prefers. But come on, man, this is like the easiest question for Hunter to answer. We all know that Hunter is the smartest man that Joe Biden knows. Although I don't agree with that statement. He comes off very, very arrogant. Hunter Biden does. He comes off arrogant. I'm not cool with guys who abandon their children. And that's exactly what Hunter Biden did. But Hunter, he's been on this little media tour to try to make himself into some sort of victim. And he recently went as far as to claim that Republicans are trying to kill him. Okay, this guy's a conspiratorial tinfoil hat wearing nut job. He says, they're trying to destroy the presidency. It's not about me. What they're trying to do is they're trying to kill me, knowing that it will pain. It will be a pain greater than my father could be able to handle. Um, and so therefore destroying a presidency in that way. What a say. Okay, yes, if Hunter were to die, I'm sure that would be tragic for any father, but if it would be greater for him to be able to handle it as president, I mean, this guy is a crack addict. I mean, the odds of him dying, overdose, or getting not paying a hooker of his enough money and then having a pimp club him in the head, right? I mean, that's, I would say, more likely than not. And if the dad, Joe Biden, if he can't handle that, then maybe he shouldn't be in office. Okay, if even Hunter is saying that his dad couldn't handle that, then maybe he shouldn't be in office. Tragic, yes, I understand, but you're the president of the United States. You'd have to be able to handle it. Um, anyway, so he says that we're going to try to destroy the presidency in that way. We're trying to kill him, which is totally stupid. No Republicans are trying to kill Hunter Biden. We're trying to hold him accountable for his crimes, i.e., tax evasion, i.e., foreign business dealings, money laundering. Allegedly, he and uh, lying on a background form to obtain a weapon. I mean, what? He says this. He goes on, Hunter Biden, and I promise I'll move on because I know you're like, ah, gosh, I can't stand this guy. He says they're very, very sick people and most likely have faced traumas in their lives that they've decided they're going to turn that into an evil, and they've decided to inflict that on the rest of the world. This guy, he wants us to believe that he is a victim because his daddy is president. But the ironic thing is here, Hunter Biden is not a victim at all. He's not a victim because he's got that last name. If he were anybody else and you lied on a background check form, if you didn't pay taxes, if you were money laundering, you would be smoking crack in California out of a tent, living in a tent, rather than living in your mansion in Malibu. Okay, you're not a victim. You're anything but that. And look, what job has Hunter had that was not because of his daddy's connections? And look, I don't know what kind of crack Hunter does and does not smoke, but I'd imagine he smokes the best crack, okay? Because he's not a victim and he probably smokes the good stuff because anything for daddy's little princess, Hunter Biden. All right, I do have to take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning. If you're watching, smash the like button. We're going to be coming back talking a little bit about this Walmart Becky. So, Walmart Becky, she's the latest Gen Z worker to blame everything on Gen Xers. And I think that you guys will get a kick out of her little rant here on TikTok. So, that's next on the Buzz. Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in each and every day. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. You can always text me at 309-451-9299. And you guys are going to get a kick out of this one. And her name is Walmart Becky. Walmart Becky. I don't know her real name, but that's what I'm calling her for now. So she is the latest Gen Z worker to go on some sort of rant and blame Gen Xers, boomers for her miserable life. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
I cannot stand how the news has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives. Let me put it in perspective for everybody who's a little confused here, okay? I work 5 days out of the week, 40 hours a week, okay? I do not make enough to live on my own. I would not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and eat. All by myself. I would not be capable of doing that. 20 years ago, when you were getting started, you could live on your own. 20 years ago, when you first started, you were able to do everything that I am now struggling to do. Let me add another perspective here. You've been working for 20 years. You have 20 years of working experience behind your belt. You have 20 years of experience in a career that has allowed you to gain raises, to get more money, to profit you in an economy that you created. You can sit here and you can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but I've been working my tail end off just to barely make it by. And respectfully, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I don't want to work my tail end off, wasting all of my life working just to barely be able to pay my bills. And that is what you created, not Gen Z. We're just here getting started. You've been doing it for the last 20 years. You tell me how it got ruined. We can sit here and we can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but you let the economy turn into what it did. You let it all run to hell. And now it's Gen Z's fault because
I can't. She's just such a little whiner. That's Walmart Becky there, and she's the latest youngin to discover the hard way how the internet works. Okay, honey, you put this out here. I am going to use it on my show on behalf of us normal people, sane people. We also grew frustrated with our crappy jobs, our crappy retail jobs. I worked as a waitress, right? I grew frustrated, but here's the thing. Here's the difference between a liberal and somebody on the right. We don't live stream about it, and we don't complain on TikTok. We go into our car during a break and we smoke a cigarette. Okay, that's how I got through it. Okay, and look, it ain't much retail job, serving job. It ain't much, but it's an honest living. And I really took pride in my waitress job. And if I was frustrated with it and if I didn't make enough money, then I would just sit in my car, smoke a cigarette, and repeat the process. So stop me if you've heard this one before. A retail worker under a certain age has their first full-time job. They hate it and they claim you're the loser, Gen Xer and a boomer. And if you're older than a certain age, for spending the rest of your life working a 9 to 5 or working, a full-time job. Okay. That isn't a retail job, a fast food job, or, a serving job of some kind. They don't want you to they don't want to live their life like that. They don't want to work a 9 to 5, and it's your fault for making living so unaffordable. So she says that she wouldn't be able to live on her own. She says that she can't pay rent, water, electric. She can't eat. She can't live by herself, and herself on her Walmart wages. She's not capable of doing that. And 20 years ago, I guess you were able to do that and you were able to live on your own. Okay. I'll concede to a couple of things here with Becky, Walmart Becky. Yes, some things are more expensive and they're way more expensive than they were years ago, 20 years ago. They're way more expensive today. But while we've got Walmart Becky here blaming Gen X for all of that and for, making things more expensive. Her generation, they're the ones who have been conned into voting for Joe Biden. Okay. And they've voted for Democrats. And if she's voted, she probably hasn't even voted, which is also her fault if she hasn't voted for Republicans. If you're not getting out there and you're voting for good conservative Republicans, then you're part of the problem and you're the reason why things are more expensive. And look, voting for Joe Biden, this has caused your disposable income, and I've got the numbers here, to drop by 7.5% since 2021. Then you're paying 16% more for milk, you're paying 18% more for housing, 20% more for food at home, you've got 24% more for eggs, 36% more in credit card debt. So, politics aside, no one even uh, lived on their own 20 years ago. A lot of the Gen Xers I talked to, they had roommates. In many cases, they had more than one roommate and they shared utilities. And perhaps they went grocery shopping instead of eating out or door dashing or buying the expensive Starbucks coffee. Okay. Maybe that's how they did it 20 years ago. And they didn't take every moment they could to go on TikTok and rant and complain. Um, and by the way, I know Gen Xers, they didn't do this. They reuse their water bottles and they don't go on to TikTok and buy the next plastic cup they see. Okay, that costs thousands or hundreds of dollars. Okay, Stanley cups, right? That's what's wrong with this generation. Though I will be fair to Becky, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps sometimes has its limits. It also goes back to the decisions people made in late 2020 and early 2021. So Becky's got a point here. The housing crisis. This is a great explanation. I'm going to play this clip, and this guy, he has a great explanation, and he kind of just goes through the numbers of the housing crisis and where we all started to see it go to hell. Okay. How did houses get so unaffordable? Let's take a listen.
The cost of housing is astronomical, but what happened in the past 4 years is the problem. Check out the difference between 1995 to 2019 to 2023. So the complaining from us millennials started probably 2020, but this is why. So in 1995, the average house was $130,000. You put down 20%, that's $26,000. The interest rates were 7.8% back in 1995. And your principal and mortgage would be around $753. Now I'm going to save the average incomes for last. Now, 2019, $260,000. Not bad over 25 years. It only doubled. So the down payment would be $52,000, and there was only a 4% interest rate. So the monthly payment for principal and interest was $993. So this difference was not bad at all. Here's where the jump happens. This is what, okay. 2023, the average home jumped to $419,000. The down payment would be $84,000. The interest rate was similar to 95, which is 7.24%, but that would leave you with a monthly payment of $2,283. Now let's go with the average incomes. In 1995, it was $29,000. In 2019, it was $56,000. In 2023, it is still $56,000. So in 1995, 31% of your income could be used for housing. You could get it into a house. In 2019, it was only 21% of your income. In 2023, it is 49% of your income, plus the cost of living, plus the cost of groceries. So the past 4 years is the problem. This is why millennials and first-time homebuyers are complaining now, because the disparity between 95 and 2019 over 25 years was not that big of a deal. It was.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so what happened 4 years ago? Oh, right, that's right. Joe Biden became president. So 20 years ago, like I said, working in retail, that is actually the start of your journey. It was the start of your journey. We knew that retail jobs weren't meant to be the final destination. You were supposed to pull yourself up by the bootstrap, bite the bullet when it came to work in a retail job. And responsibilities, yeah. Becky from Walmart, I can totally agree. They can be difficult, but it comes with the territory of being a grown up. just does. It's or adulting, as people who whine about having to be a grown up have started calling it. Everyone from every generation has had the same frustrations. Sorry, Walmart Becky, you are not special. You're not special. All right, I do have to take a break. You're listening to the Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button and just share this out with your normie friends. It's so important that we raise awareness about these topics and specifically this next story you guys are going to really want to share with friends and people who might not be in the political sphere. So, this is a Venezuelan migrant, and this is Chicago's very own um, Sound of Freedom version. I mean, this is a Chicago version of Sound of Freedom. So, let's get back into it here on the Buzz. Smash the like button. It's Chicago's very own version of the Sound of Freedom. And this is reporter William J. Kelly. He's got the scoop here on his Twitter page, and this is disturbing. Prosecutors say that a Venezuelan man who's in the U.S. illegally, by the way, Elbiro Vasquez. He is 24 years old, and he's here in the United States illegally, and he is at the center of a migrant sex trafficking ring with women being forced into prostitution and their families' lives threatened in Chicago. This is happening in Chicago in the Austin neighborhood. Two women were held at gunpoint at a residence just a few minutes away from Mayor Brandon Johnson's house, actually. And these two women were forced to perform sex acts. A Cook County judge has denied Mr. Elbiro Vasquez Roman. That's his name. He's 24. They've denied him release. No safety act for him. Now, the Chicago reporter, William J. Kelly, he's been reporting on this uptick in open air drug deals. We've got violent crimes, theft. We've got prostitution around many of Chicago's migrant shelters. As I told you earlier in the show today, I think we've gotten about 30,000 migrants since August of 2022. And if you look at the Inn of Chicago, this is one of the largest migrant shelters in the state, and definitely in Chicago. It's on Michigan Avenue. This is the city's largest shelter, and it houses about 2,300 migrants. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, he needs to be more worried about the migrant human trafficking rings instead of blasting Governor Abbott or fining these bus companies because it's not working. What needs to happen is that border needs to be shut down. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every day. And yeah, that is Chicago's version of the Sound of Freedom. Really, it's happening. And you've got folks like Corey Byrne, the McLean County board member, a Democrat, saying, "Oh, this is the most disgusting piece of baloney." I can't say the other word on air. That this resolution that goes before the county board tonight, he says, "Oh, this is the most disgusting piece of of legislation I've seen." This is what Corey Byrne says on his Facebook page, and I just think I, this is not humane. What's going on at that border? It's not humane. It's disturbing. The Democrats are for state-sanctioned human trafficking, and we're trafficking people over the border, um, and via not enforcing our current immigration laws. So here's the resolution that goes before the board today. The federal government's refusal to enforce current immigration laws jeopardize the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and further imposes financial burdens on our citizens while being unfair to those seeking legal entry into the United States. And whereas the federal government their refusal to enforce said immigration laws empowers drug cartels and victimizes women and children and often results in the exploitation of migrants, many of which who have not filed for asylum applications and are currently unaccounted for. They're unaccounted for. Okay. And it makes it easy for a nefarious character to come up and traffic them. And McLean County has limited taxpayer resources, which we're obligated to use in service of our lawful U.S. citizen constituents. Therefore, be it resolved, the County Board of McLean County, we will not accept or provide taxpayer funded services to migrants sent into McLean County by any other state or municipality. They're not going to accept taxpayer money to try to address the migrant issue. I do have to take a break, but there it is. Chicago's own version of the Sound of Freedom. And this guy is here illegally and he's clogging up our prison systems. And, it reminds me of the story of Gabriel Calixto, another individual who is here illegally. And he has been accused of stabbing a Springfield girl named Emma Schaefer. And he still is yet to be brought to justice, from what I understand. I don't know if he's still at large or what, but he was here illegally and he had priors, even prior to him allegedly stabbing Emma Schaefer. He kidnapped a girl. He only served a couple of years in an IODC or IDOC, the Illinois Department of Corrections, and he shouldn't have been here. We need to reevaluate our immigration and we need to close the border. All right, I'm back here in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Up next, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the storm that could be coming. And we could be getting like 3 to 6 inches again. It's probably going to be very similar to what we had on Tuesday. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Go ahead, smash that like button. And, thank you for another wonderful segment, as always. May the Lord's light guide your way and stay safe. Yes, stay safe, Henry. And I appreciate you tuning in each and every day. Bob, with a $100,000 phone, designed clothes, $100 snail, quit voting Democrat. Yeah. Yeah, I posted on my page today. I mean, your expensive coffee, your door dashing. I mean, this is Gen Z's problem. They have an problem with impulse buying. She just needs to pull up her bootstraps, pull herself up by her bootstraps, and be an adult, grow up. All right, I'm back. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. And Illinois. We could be getting central Illinois. We could be getting like 3 to 6 inches. Friday, the precipitation chances were like at 90%. We could see some blustery conditions, some wind gusts reaching up to 34 miles per hour. That's kind of insane. We could expect anywhere between 3 to 6. I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be less than that. It's probably gonna be very similar to what we had on Tuesday. So far, I'm looking at the temperatures. It doesn't look like they're gonna drop much, uh, much more than 33 degrees. So we could see some rain, some sleet, kind of very slushy. That's what I'm expecting for tomorrow. So we are in like some sort of weather advisory starting at midnight tonight. You can stay tuned to your forecast all day today on Cities 92.9 for any updates. Today is National Hot Toddy Day. A good day for a hot boozy drink. I know a lot of people who are sick. My mom came down with a cold. I think that this is a cure for the common cold, or at least it helps alleviate some symptoms. It's called a hot toddy. Have you ever had one? Typically, it's just hot water, honey, lemon, and bourbon. Somebody texted in and they were like, actually, I really like hot coffee with a little bit of Kahlua. Kahlua. That's my favorite drink on a cold day in Texas, which is about 55 degrees. Yeah. I wish we were in Texas. Um, It'd be so nice to have 55 degrees be the coldest that we are going to get. But we haven't had any like extreme cold snaps. It's gotten to like in the 20s a little bit, but nothing too crazy. But a hot toddy, that might just be the fix you need here. But like I said, we're going to have posted on cities929.com impending road conditions, the sort of storm system. We're going to track that. So we'll be back at it bright and early tomorrow morning. I'm very excited to talk about the McLean County Board meeting that's happening tonight, and they've got a couple of things that they've got to discuss, particularly the resolution that makes it to where McLean County will not be using taxpayer-funded services to help to really to house the migrants or to feed the migrants here. We're not going to be using taxpayer funded services to do that if they're dumped off here in McLean County. So we'll hit all that tomorrow morning. I'm very excited. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye bye. I love you.